Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Derek Brown from VPS Securities, Institutional Sales, Head of Department. Joining us today we have Mr. Michael Piro, the co-CEO of Indochina Capital. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Stephen.
Michael, your company's co-founder and chairman, Peter Ryder, arrived in Vietnam in 1992, yourself very soon after. So understandably and respectably, you're both among two of the most experienced and industry professionally regarded investors in Vietnam. When you first came here, where did you come? Haiphong, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and did you plan to stay very long, or what were your thoughts?
Actually, when I first arrived in Vietnam, it was meant to be a 2-week trip, kind of a reconnaissance trip. I had a bag of clothes with me, about $500, and 2 meetings, one with CBRE and one with Chesterton Petty, which is now Savills. I had met with the director of CBRE, and he said to me after our interview, he said, I have some good news and I have some bad news for you. And he's like, which one would you like first? I said, let's take the good news first. He said, the good news is I think I have a job for you. I said, okay, great. Well, what's the bad news? He's like, you can't go home. He said, I have a client who's building a project in Da Nang. His name is Peter Ryder. He runs a company called Indochina Capital, and we need to send somebody down to Da Nang right now. And I said, well, what is Da Nang? And this was about 20 years ago. And so they flew me to Da Nang. I met Peter Ryder for the first time, and he was my first client in Vietnam as I was working for CBRE. And so that's kind of how my journey got started with Indochina. And it didn't take long before Peter encouraged me to make the move over from CBRE to join Indochina full-time at the ripe age of about 22 years old, and that's kind of how we started working together.
I first met you, I've been here since 2013, and I recall first meeting you around about 10 years ago. Right. And by then you had already rapidly advanced up the ranks at Indochina Capital. Right. You were the Chief Operating Officer for Indochina Capital then already, and Peter's ex-Salomon brothers. I'm ex-Salomons with Barney, and he said to me then, you're a future leader of Indochina Capital, and sure enough, here we are today, and you're the co-CEO, not only of Indochina Capital, but you head Indochina Strategic, you're the CEO of the Wink Hotel division, and intimately engaged with everything from CORE5 to Indochina Capital. So we'll speak about all those, because you know all about those and you help run all those. Now, you've gone from being at inception a fund management based type of developer. Firstly, super luxury resorts. You mentioned the Hyatt Regency Da Nang. After that, you went to high-end residences and then grade A office buildings, including some iconic ones here in Hanoi, and also then industrial factories. The industrial factories are quite interesting because you include the ready-built factory model, and you've got some very good strategic partner from Japan in that relationship under the CORE5 brand, don't you? Right. So give us some timeline highlights in that journey.
Looking back, I think we're about 9 years into our partnership with Kojima. And we kicked off that partnership after being, as you mentioned, fund managers. We managed 3 privately held real estate funds, about $500 million in equity, which was a great start for us to launch into the real estate market. We were able to deliver some iconic projects through those funds, including the Nam Hai Four Seasons, the Hyatt Regency Da Nang, Six Senses Condell, the Montgomery Links Golf Course, Indochina Plaza Hanoi, to name a few. But what we realized is the funds, that type of capital, that type of term capital, 5 to 7 year capital, was an imperfect vehicle for really exploiting the returns that Vietnam has to offer. We realized that longer term capital would be necessary to really optimize our investment strategy, given that the projects that we were developing, for the most part, were very much ahead of their time. They were capital intensive, they were design intensive, they pushed the boundaries in many ways, and to get the returns that we believe these projects were deserving of required a kind of longer investment horizon or gestation period for the projects to be properly understood and optimized from a value standpoint. So as our fund management business started, as we were winding down kind of circa 2011, 12, 13, we were kind of in exit mode. When we looked at how are we going to recreate ourselves in this new environment, we were definitely moving towards more of a joint venture type model, a longer term capital model where we're not restricted by the cycles of a fund and the timelines of a fund. So that's when we were approached by Kojima, and we thought this is a perfect opportunity for us to launch into a new way of doing business.
And Kojima is one of the longest standing Japanese corporations too. It's got well over a century of history, very iconic. You've had a bit of a iconic relationship with the companies that you noted before, like when you were delivering the 5-star hotel resorts. Did you find it complicated or difficult to get them interested in Vietnam? Because, okay, massive, beautiful acres of beachfront, capacity for 5-star resorts, integrated golf links and so on, but the initial sell of the story, how did you find that?
That's a very good question, Stephen. And when we look back on, for example, convincing Hyatt to manage the Hyatt Regency, what is today the Hyatt Regency Da Nang, they were initially extremely skeptical. If you look back at Da Nang 15, 16 years ago, it was an empty strip of beach from Da Nang City, from Furama all the way to Hoi An. And so they were incredibly skeptical. They required us to commission a number of third-party research companies to come in and do feasibility studies. And through that, and through constant persistence, et cetera, largely on Peter's part, we were able to convince them that this hotel could not just happen, but it could be a winner. Looking back on it today, the Hyatt Regency Da Nang is one of Hyatt's highest performing hotels in the region. So it was a bet that really paid off, and today they have a tremendous amount of respect for what we've done. And but yes, it was tricky in the beginning, convincing all these big international brands to take a bet on Vietnam before it was what we know it as today.
And as it is today, you've now been able to not take disadvantage of that, but direct advantage of that, because you've got your own brand now, Wink Hotels, haven't you? Wink Hotels first opened in 2019 in Ho Chi Minh City, almost directly opposite the iconic GEM Convention Center, so it's in an ideal location. You've got 5 of those right now. The 6th one is opening, I think you said, in June. Yep. That will deliver 2,000 keys or thereabouts to the market. Yeah. And it's a 24/7 brand, so the pool's open 24/7. I think there it is right now in the background. The bar is open 24/7, so these are all kind of iconic deliveries to the market as well, particularly for the demographic that you're after. Tell us the strategic vision of that for Vietnam, and then with the brand's ownership within your company, you've got capability to have a brand of Winks delivered to, say, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. What's your thoughts with all this?
I think what we wanted to do with Wink is, well, first of all, the original strategy was we've kind of always played in that kind of top 1 to 5% of the market. So delivering ultra luxury resorts for the ultra wealthy. And it was primarily, our initial projects were very much catered to a foreign market. But what we noticed, with the growing prevalence of low-cost carriers like Vietjet, et cetera, the domestic market actually became the more robust, the more attractive opportunity. When we were looking at starting this business, there was maybe, 12 to 15 million international arrivals, but Vietnamese domestic tourism was starting to reach 80, 90, 100 million trips a year. So we started to look at it like, whoa, well, why don't we, rather than going after this very small niche market of high net worth travelers, why don't we create something that can appeal to the masses, something that we can scale, create a scalable concept that we can run. And initially we did go and meet with international operators and looked at the Holiday Inn Expresses of the world, et cetera. But we found that none of them to us really felt like they could satisfy the tastes and preferences of the domestic traveler, of the Vietnamese traveler. We didn't feel like they embodied the spirit of the Vietnamese traveler enough. And so instead of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, why don't we create a round peg that can fit into a round hole? And that's what we really wanted to do with Wing. And we wanted to take a fresh view on hospitality, as you mentioned. We have 24-hour bar, 24-hour co-working spaces, 24-hour gyms. But what's even bigger than that is actually we have a 24-hour check-in time. So if you check in at 10 p.m., you can check out the next day at 10 p.m. So you actually get a 24-hour stay. And we're the first hotel that I'm aware of that's ever done this before. So we wanted to create something that was young, design-driven, fresh, tech-savvy, and really target, when we look at Vietnam, roughly 2/3 of the population are 35 years old or below. They're on their phone, they're highly connected, they have rising incomes, and we wanted to create a product that is reflective of Vietnam, that holds the old values, but also embraces modern values, innovation, and technology. And that's kind of how Wink was born, and today it's been extremely well received.
You're right, with the increase of GDP per capita, discretionary spend, the uptick in domestic air travel and so on, destinations like Da Nang, Hai Phong, your one in Ho Chi Minh City, people can fly there from Hanoi in under 2 hours or thereabouts for that one. And GDP per capita approaching 4,500, 5,000 USD. They have the capacity to get the 3-star plus, 4-star hotel experience at a Vietnamese standard of delivery. When you walk in, you get a whole pile of Vietnamese food options. You can actually go there for like a breakfast, lunch, dinner, cafe type of situation as well. I recall the first meeting I had in the new one with Piro. We had bowls of, pho and some broken rice and so on, and it was just like you'd get at a fantastic side street Vietnamese restaurant. So also inside your hotels you have iconic art, don't you? You support the artistic community of Vietnam, not only the Vietnamese artists but also foreign expert artists in Vietnam, and some of them you've got renowned British sketch artists throughout some of the hotels, haven't you?
Yeah, Richie Fawcett did. He does a customized sketch of the surrounding area for each hotel, and we feature those sketches actually on the blinds in every room. So that was another big part of the brand. Is when we were starting it, Vietnam was on this movement of transitioning out of let's glorify American products and Korean products to let's create our own products. So great coffee brands, great art, amazing snacks, amazing food. It became a celebration of what's amazing locally, what's new locally. And so we wanted to use these hotels as a showcase for the best of Vietnam. So we prioritize locally sourcing food and drink, priority sourcing for local artwork and local talent. We make the hotel available for local musicians and local DJs and local artists. So it's really a celebration of Vietnam. And we try to make each hotel not just a hotel to sleep at, but a neighborhood hub where people can meet, where we welcome the outside community into the hotel, whether you're a guest or not. And so that's really a fundamental philosophy of the brand.
Yeah. You totally integrate it all. So it's not even just like a destination to sleep in. You can go there, co-workspace environment, food and beverage environment, entertainment environment, and then I've noticed you've also opened up the space for when there's talent shows and so on. You've had relations with the modeling agencies and so on, and sports teams. They all get preferential rates and treatment when you come in, don't they? So keeping on that strategic vision, just to wrap up, do you have plans for international expansion? Because there's such a big Vietnamese diaspora, such as the Vietnamese community in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, in Australia is one example, Auckland, New Zealand is another. I'm assuming these would be incredibly well received.
Yeah, I mean, first step first, we want to really cement our foothold in Vietnam, make sure we're firmly entrenched in Vietnam. I want to become a household brand name in Vietnam and really make sure we've driven the proof of concept here. But then ultimately the goal is to take this celebration of Vietnamese hospitality and bring it to the world, not just have the world come to Vietnam to experience, but then to take this concept to as you mentioned, to Australia, to other Southeast Asian destinations and beyond. And we want to make sure that it stays a Vietnamese hotel brand as we travel, not localize it in other countries as we move around. We want to proudly be a Vietnamese hotel brand.
Great idea. Another great idea, CORE5 with Kajima. The first project was in Haiphong, so that's kind of coupling up with the first Wink, which will be in Haiphong. But you've obviously had Winks before this period. Tell us about that relationship, how you got that idea, because CORE5 brand is quite iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the CORE5 brand is actually a brand that Kajima used for their US industrial platform, and so we thought there was such great equity built up there with a number of multinational tenants and great capital relationships that we would use that same brand here in Vietnam. It's been a big pivot from going from hotels to factories.
5-star hotels to factories.
Yeah, to factories. But we proudly bring the same attention to detail, the same, commitment to being quite design forward in our approach. If it's possible to say such a thing, our factories are actually pretty sexy.
Mate, you can see even when you drive in to the IP, the industrial park, it's very uniquely landscaped. It's like you're going into a 5-star resort, compared to some of the local competitive peers and even international peers that have set up IPs here.
Yeah, so we always try to stay kind of, as I mentioned before, kind of 1 or 2 steps ahead. We're seeing the market is paying a premium for this type of product, and I believe that that premium over time will continue to grow. We're fully sustainable, LEED Gold certified, and I believe over time we're going to continue to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, and that's going to be great for our business and great for the industrial parks that we serve, like Deep Sea. We're in Deep Sea both in Haiphong and in Quang Ninh. Fully occupied, both projects, and we have a third CORE5 in Hung Yen, which is very close to being fully leased. So, so far the market has really warmly welcomed the CORE5 product, and it's been a fantastic business for us.
Cool. Now, so on that strategic note, another prime element of Indochina Capital is Indochina Strategic, which is your advisory division. You run it as well. You're seen as a trend expert there. So tell us how this part of the business works, and in the current environment, it's probably one where you're picking up quite a few calls.
Oh yeah, I mean, so that business was kind of born as a stopgap measure. As we were winding down our funds in kind of the 2012, 13, 14 kind of period, before we set up Indochina Capital, it was really kind of out of necessity. We had picked up all this practical experience from running developing a number of iconic projects through our fund management business. So we had all this hands-on experience. I was personally responsible for handling most of the exits, so I had to develop a ton of transaction experience from exiting our various portfolios. And then we had this time in between where some of our friends or business partners started to come to us and say, well, I'm developing a branded residence project, can you help me? Or Michael, you guys were just selling a number of your assets, I want to sell this one, do you think you could come and take a look at it? So it kind of just started as something that we were doing as an interim measure while we were setting up the new business. But it turned out the business grew so fast and became so successful that it's now in probably its 10th year of operation, and it's an incredibly profitable business. So it's a business that's now very much fundamental to what we do. And Peter comes from that investment banking M&A background at Solomon Brothers. I was in a similar role before I came to Vietnam doing commercial real estate brokerage and whatnot. So we love it. We're deal junkies. We love and we like being involved in a lot of different facets of real estate. So yeah, it's turned out to be a great business, and we do everything from development planning, helping people master plan, M&A work, helping people buy or sell land, feasibility studies. So basically everything that anything real estate related we are able to support with. And I think what differentiates us from many of our competitors is that we've done it before for ourselves. We're still doing it every day. And so it's no longer an academic exercise or a theoretical exercise of this is how you could do it. This is like, I will come and we will help you actually do the things that we're recommending. It's not just a report.
It's basically, giving advice on what you've already experienced.
Exactly.
Successfully pushed through and discovered in the market with the unique intricacies in Vietnam, from whether it be as a fund manager for a source of capital through to a direct investment funding model that you use now. In relation to those calls there, how do you then see the local landscape? If we look at, say, the developments in the time that you've been here, Vietnamese real estate, there's a growing cohort of local listed companies. It's the second largest constituency after the banking listed companies of Vietnam, over 20% of the market cap, total weighting. Then you've also got local private developers. Some are a bit of a hybrid model to yours, trying to also do hotels. Some are doing IPs. How do you see the competitive landscape changing?
Oh, I mean, they have been, local developers, investors have, they've grown considerably in the time that I've been in Vietnam. So I think when I first came, kind of in the early 2000s, what we saw was the market, there was a lot of speculation. Everyone wanted to be in the real estate business. So we saw you know, the large bakeries had a real estate division, the taxi companies had a real estate division, and everyone thought that everyone could be a developer. We've seen some quite pronounced cycles in Vietnam over the last 2 decades. And with each of those cycles, we've seen kind of a few developers emerge from that stronger, and several get wiped out through the process for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they're over-leveraged, sometimes it's legal reasons. But what we've seen now is the group that has emerged as the survivors, they're very strong. They're very well capitalized, they're very well experienced, the quality they can develop, their ability to source land, their ability to get creative about the way they finance their projects. So we have no aspirations to be the biggest. We just try to be the best. And we try to be the most, we have to be very focused in our approach, extremely niche in our approach. And even to the extent when we were creating the Wink model, we said there's no point of creating a business plan that requires land that we'll never be able to buy. So we deliberately engineered the Wink prototype hotel to work on a piece of land that is too small for the big, large local developers. They would never, most of them would not waste their time doing such a small project. But it's a bit too big for a family to hold on to it forever because it's a significant amount of money that they can create liquidity for. So that proved to be a very wise decision because we're not going around competing with the major top 4 and 5 large real estate developers for example, for our Wing play, because those pieces of land just aren't very attractive to them. But it was very fundamental to how we put that business plan together. It was, you know, it was very much an acquisition-driven strategy, and then kind of went bottom up from the land, because we know how hard it is to secure land in Vietnam. So that was very much fundamental to what we did, and it was very much a defensive strategy because these local groups are so strong, so competitive. We did not want to be going head-to-head with them trying to acquire sites.
And particularly, you know, that's a very important comment, because particularly in, say, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, in the Golden Land area, the price per square meter is astronomical in some instances on some streets. And even your first Wink that you launched proximate to the GEM Convention Center, that's still in the Golden Land area.
Yeah.
You know, so I think what you've just articulated there is highly highly important for any potential entrant. They need to get the land access, they need to get the red book or the pink book sorted, and Indochina Strategic, you've probably got quite a cohort of long-standing relations, not only from Japan that you've had going back since Oryx to now Kojima, but probably regionally as well, no doubt, because there is quite a lot of change with the land laws that have come in. They're trying to make it more efficient to get land, but it's still quite complex. So you're targeting probably now the pseudo family office scaled Vietnamese, and many of those mass affluent now with 100 million people. So there is opportunities in all the tier 2 cities to look at strategic Wink sites in that model, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. Most of these deals were done around, you know, in a kitchen around the dinner table with a family, negotiating with them. They had a business on those sites, and it had been in the family for a long time, and it was done very quietly and very privately. Most of these acquisitions, but you know, one of the things that has differentiated us is we are a foreign developer, but we're all very much local. You know, every foreigner.
You're half Vietnamese. Yeah, exactly. your family, like mine.
Exactly.
You know,
so we're able to really work at that level, whereas if you're flying, some private equity guy flying in and out of Hong Kong or Singapore in a suit every week, trying to deal with those type of people, I think it would be a little bit more tricky.
So just to wrap up now, your thoughts for how you see Vietnam trending?
Well, for Wink, I mean, I think so far what we've seen is on the, you know, these geopolitical issues haven't put a dent in tourism at all. This year we're on track to surpass, it will be the highest year for tourism, both international and domestic rivals on record in Vietnam's history. And we continue to see Vietnam as a highly sought after destination for international guests. And I think with the young growing population, rising incomes, domestic tourism will continue to boom. So I very, at this stage, you know, unless there's another pandemic or something, I see tourism will continue to chug away. So that part of our business I feel quite confident about. I'm cautiously optimistic about that part of the business. When we look at these trade issues, obviously a major engine of Vietnam's growth is in manufacturing right now. And a lot of that's going to the US. So there it actually does have quite a big impact on our, or potential to impact our industrial business, where we're building ready-built factories for the most part. And many of those, we don't have full exposure to the US, but I'd say about half of our tenants are probably exporting to the US, and this could change the sentiment towards, you know, more manufacturers relocating to Vietnam, first of all, and we're definitely seeing investment capital who want to own the underlying real estate, et cetera, saying, I need to take a pause and see how the dust settles here. So I think this is an important one for Vietnam, navigating our way through the current macroeconomic / geopolitical / trade issues. Is going to be very important for how Vietnam performs over the next, you know, over the short to medium term. But I'm highly confident in the leadership of Vietnam. I'm highly confident that reasonableness will prevail, and that you know, that in any respect that Vietnam is going to come out in a relatively good position, and that you know, the growth will sustain.
Michael, Piro, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat to you today.
Thank you.
VPS Securities, VPS Live, and all success with the Wink opening in June.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing the success of that and the rollout. I think you've got, what, just in the Vietnamese plan, 10 or 20 of these? Well,
that's a long term, yeah, but the next immediate one will be Hanoi on Tuy Quet, overlooking the West Lake, so that's going to be spectacular, and that should be late 2026, early 2027, so stay tuned.
Heard it here first. Steve Brown from VPS Securities, VPS Live, with our special guest, co-CEO of Indochina Capital, Michael Piro.
Thank you.